So I'm at uni now, studying film and TV, and one of our assignments was to watch Moonlight, and we were told to have a particular focus on the cinematography. Obviously the cinematography is very nice to look at throughout the whole film, and it's definitely a big selling point of it. Any other year it probably would have won the Oscar, but in 2017 La La Land managed to sneak in there, and it managed to sneak in Best Picture as well, but that was just for a few minutes. But we were asked to find one scene in Moonlight where we think the cinematography is particularly meaningful, and then write down our ideas so we can share them in our online seminar. So I picked probably the most obvious scene, the one where Chiron is being taught to swim by Mahershala Ali's character, who I think is called Juan. I picked this really because I felt like I could say a lot about the cinematography, and then we can extract deeper meaning from that scene by looking at the framing, the camera angle, the camera movement, and just, I feel like it's a really important scene in the film, and a really important moment in Chiron's life. And that's really the main point I'm going to be getting at, that this is a very important moment in Chiron's life, and Juan is a very important figure in Chiron's life, and the cinematography helps kind of drive home the importance of this scene and this moment. So I'm going to start by looking at the context of the scene. Why was it written into the film, and what has the director Barry Jenkins said about it? Well, in an interview for Entertainment Weekly, Jenkins, who grew up in Miami, said that the ocean had a particular energy, and that wherever you were in the city you could always feel its presence. He wanted to imbue the film with this energy, so perhaps this is why he chose the ocean as a motif that recurs at three important and distinct moments in Chiron's life: the swimming scene that we're going to talk about in this video, the scene on the beach with Kevin, and the final scene with Kevin when we flash back to Chiron as a kid on the beach. This idea that the ocean is always in the background is probably true for Chiron as well. I bet he could sense it just as Barry Jenkins could sense it. He can't swim, so I doubt he spent much time at the beach, but it's with Juan who he gets to finally experience the ocean with, something that's in the background and kind of taunting him for his whole life up until this point. This elevates the importance of this moment to Chiron. He is finally able to experience something that he missed out on. Barry Jenkins himself admits that this scene was designed to be a spiritual transference between Chiron and Juan. This is a moment that they are truly intimately bonded. So it could be argued that this is a moment Juan really becomes a father figure to Chiron, and is now destined to have a big impact on his life. Chiron in the third part of this film has almost modelled himself after Juan, seen by them both having a little crown on their dashboard. So if we kind of take a step back and look at this scene in the wider context of the film as a whole, and consider what the director said, it's clear that this moment was intended to be an important part of Chiron's life. So now let's look at the scene itself. Firstly, what is actually happening in this scene? Well, Juan is teaching Chiron how to swim, obviously, but let's consider this in the broader context of his life. Learning to swim, for me at least, is somewhat of a milestone in growing up. I know I can remember when I first learned to swim. Perhaps Chiron himself will remember this moment and look back at it as a fond memory. So this scene essentially just shows that Chiron is grown up, but who is there with him at this moment? Juan. Again, this shows him as a father figure, which is present for most of the first segment, but I would say this is a scene that really cements Juan into this role. As I said before, Barry Jenkins said this was a spiritual transference, so this could be what he means by that. So learning to swim is a key moment in growing up, and Juan is the one who teaches Chiron how to swim, so obviously he's going to have an important impact on his life. So I'm going to move on to the framing now and, actually talk about the cinematography like I said I would. There's 2 points I'm going to make. Firstly, the fact that parts of this scene are framed almost like a baptism, and secondly, the fact that the framing can accentuate the vulnerability on display from Chiron. Right, so the baptism. Juan has his hand on Chiron's head, just like a priest might when baptising a child, so there's obviously some symbolism in play. This can play off the idea that this is a milestone moment in Chiron's life, a moment that he will remember, as being baptised is a rite of passage for many and is obviously a very important moment in their life. Again, this shows that Chiron is grown up. This symbolism also adds to the idea that Juan is a father figure, or at least a figure that cares about Chiron. He routinely gives advice and looks out for what's best for Chiron and just loves him for who he is, which can be seen when Chiron asks him about homosexuality. This care is reflected in the way Juan holds Chiron, and makes sure he doesn't go underwater. We can compare how these two are presented in other parts of the scene to look at Chiron's vulnerability. He's almost fully submerged in the water, struggling to keep his head above the surface. This could mirror how he's not quite a man yet, he hasn't fully grown up and still has many issues in front of him to face, and he hasn't truly realised who he is yet. In contrast, Juan stands tall amongst the waves, signifying how he has gone through the challenges of growing up and accepting who he is, and is ready to guide Chiron through these challenges, again playing into the father figure idea. Chiron is vulnerable here, and trusts Juan to care for him. Perhaps he's the only person he trusts in his way, as his mum's kinda crappy and he doesn't really have anyone else. So the characters are framed in a way that essentially shows their status. Chiron is young and facing the struggles of growing up, but he trusts Juan to care for him and accept him in a way that not many have. I think we can also delve deeper into the specific camera angle used for most of this scene, as I think it truly makes the scene a lot more intimate. It's from a low angle, the camera partially submerged and water splashing against the lens. It's almost as if the camera is hidden from the characters. This kind of shot wouldn't be out of place in a nature documentary about seals or something. This is in contrast to the rest of the film that mainly features slick camera movement and some clean cinematography. But this is a much harsher shot, suggesting that this is a private moment for the two characters, as the hidden element of the camera suggests that we as an audience are not meant to be seeing this moment. The private nature of it only adds to the intimacy between the two characters. It's as if this is a tender moment that only concerns the two of them. We as an audience don't belong as we're not part of their relationship. This camera angle also suggests that Chiron can be his true self around Juan, even more so than he can be even with himself. He shows his vulnerability to Juan here in this private scene. He's given up any facades that he has when in the presence of others, and at this moment is just being himself. We can also get a sense of danger from this angle. The water has partially submerged the camera and taken over part of the frame. It's splashing up on the lens. It's like Chiron struggling to keep his head above the water, so we are put in Chiron's shoes and see the world from his perspective. But Juan is there to make sure he stays above the surface, again adding to his caring and father-like nature. Even the way Juan holds Chiron, we really do get a sense that he cares for him deeply. So the low angle and the water splashed on the lens transport us into Chiron's point of view, where he's completely vulnerable and relies on Juan, which just dials the intimacy of this moment up to 11. So there's certainly a lot under the surface in this scene that can be unpacked, but essentially I believe this moment in the film is super important, as it represents the true intimacy of Chiron and Juan's relationship. The framing, the low camera angle and the waves splashing on the lens all enforce this idea and suggest that this is a special moment in Chiron's life. In fact, the motif of waves occurs 3 times in the film, each at moments where it seems like Chiron can be his true self. All 3 of these moments are instrumental for Chiron's journey and are key steps on the way to accepting and embracing who he truly is. So we can look at this motif and everything else I've talked about and tell that Chiron will remember this moment on the beach, and it was a key point in his growing up and one of the only moments in the film and in his life that he can be his true self.